Welcome to Fabulous Friday Captive Audience. And so I'm Suni Danforth, Umatilla County. And tonight is a special guest, Clint Carlson. He is the chair of Morrow County. And tonight we are going to talk about Republican politics. We talk about it a lot here in various ways on Captive Audience, talking about what's going on in the news politically, locally, state, and nationwide, and whatnot. Well, I invited Clint. I invited three other guests on, but two had other things that were going. I'm so glad. Clint, welcome to Captive Audience, and thank you for coming on and joining me.
Thank you, Sonny. I appreciate it.
So I would like to know how long have you been involved in your county party politics?
Probably 5, 6 years. I've kind of been involved in the public for the last 15 years. I kind of started out as chair or Morrow County Grain Growers Board and was secretary and chair for 6 years. And then from there, I went to the Oregon Wheat Growers League and started out as a county president and then went to did the chairs through that. And then I was chairman for 2 years because of COVID. And through that, I was involved in the National Association of Wheat Growers Board of Directors. And I was on various committees and chair and vice chair on various committees. And I enjoyed that a lot. That was a lot of fun. And it was a lot of policy work going to Washington, D.C. to lobby and those kind of things. And when I was done with that, then I thought, well, now what can I do? And so Ken Matlack was doing Morrow County Republicans trying to get that going again. And so I called him and I said, hey, you need help? And he said, yeah, I do. I need a lot of help. And so anyway, he was, I don't know, chair for 4 or 5 years. And then he defected to Umatilla County and so now I'm chairman, and so I enjoy it. It's frustrating, and but it we have situations in our world that you need people to step up and volunteer. And my wife and I have decided to do that. For how long we're going to do it, I don't know, because it's frustrating. So.
Well, I can understand that. And your wife is your partner there, definitely with that. And that's really a blessing. I will say my husband, he supports everything I do, but he's not like your wife supports you. Okay. My husband goes, if I go get involved in that, my blood pressure goes way too high. And it does because I've seen it. So it affects his health. So for me, it doesn't affect my blood pressure at all. I'm like cool as a cucumber, but it is at times it's so rewarding. And at other times it is very frustrating. And right now we're kind of dealing with a little bit of a frustration within our state party. And so what we're dealing with is on March 16th, there was a state central committee meeting in North Bend to have elections for national committeemen and committeewomen. And that was the primary goal of that meeting. Actually, it's the first meeting of the year, and to hold those elections. And our audience knows, but for those that maybe have never seen this before, we had the election, and but we needed 120. There were 126 voters there at this convention. But when we had the election for a three-way race for the National Committee Women's position, only 100. It was reported to us that 125 ballots were cast, And so what's come out, and so they declared Tracy Honnell the winner with 63 votes, despite needing 64. But they said only 125 ballots were cast. So they declared her the winner. And there, I challenged it on the floor, and other people did as well. And we asked the body for a revote. We asked the body to go back and count the ballots again. We asked them to put it in numerical order. People did. Not all, I didn't ask all these things. There was a lot of people that were very concerned that a ballot hasn't been turned in, because in my years of going, I don't remember a ballot being withheld. And because that's what we're going for. We're giving up our time and to paying money to sit through a meeting and have an election, and you go there to vote. So I have seen where somebody has abstained and they've written abstain on the ballot, but they still turn it in. And
Right.
and that's the correct thing to do. You don't turn a blank ballot in because somebody nefariously could mark it, right? So that's kind of where our frustration is right now, and is that the body and our leadership, Tracy, our vice chair, Angela Plowhead, was acting as the chairman of that particular meeting, and basically nobody would do any of those things. And they said, well, this is an abstention. And we were told that's an abstention, and that's basically it. That's my take. Is that in a nutshell? Is that about it? Do you think, Clint?
Yeah, I mean it is, and um, I think from my point of view, to have a ballot be missing, it's like, well, whose ballot is it? It may just be one vote, but was that my ballot that was missing? And they didn't tell us the number of the ballot that was missing. I didn't keep track of my number, so I may not have known that. But
I did.
it's not fair. It's not. You would. it's it's not fair to the person whose that ballot was, and then come to find out it was actually a vote for Helen. Then all the people who voted for Helen were like, "Well, was that my ballot?" I mean, the did I not get a vote because it was my ballot that went
Right.
missing? And so when people say, "Well, it
Right.
was only one vote," well, it could have been everybody's vote who thought that it might have been their vote. So I don't know. That's my
Okay.
take
And
on it.
so
And go ahead.
So what we found out since then is there's been an audit of the ballots. The secretary has she asked there another voting delegate had asked for the secretary to go in and count the ballots, and so the secretary did that. But well, there's lots of layers to this whole story, because the ballots were not stored with the secretary, is who should have had those ballots in a sealed envelope, because there was a challenge from the floor. And very shortly before they did this ballot audit, I filed a challenge to the RNC to the election, because they were not following the rules and not following the bylaws. That's my point of view, and I'm allowed to have my point of view. But it wasn't just my point of view, because what we've learned is that there were two witnesses that were observers, one for each of the other of two of the candidates, that wrote up reports going, this was not right. What we observed in that room was not right, where the ballots were handling. There's so many things that have now come to light. It's astonishing, and which is leading to our frustration. And some might go, well, it was just one ballot, and would it change the outcome of the election? Actually, yes, it would, because had all 126 ballots at that meeting had they said we have 126 ballots, then it would have gone to a second ballot right then and there, because Tracy would have got 63 votes. She only needed one more, and she might very well have got it, but we don't know, because there were three candidates. And it just turns out that a second ballot could have actually been 63 to 63.
Right.
It could have been an absolute split tie, and it could have gone to a third ballot. This is not uncommon, having to go to multiple ballots. It's something that we've had to do. You've seen that before, right? Is that right, Clint?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've seen that, not necessarily at the ORP, but in other things. And look what happened with a national committee man vote. And what would have happened if this would have happened? Same thing happened during that. So they had a second ballot. Solomon said, I'm out. I'm giving my votes to Jason.
Yep.
Dan was the third, and he won. It could have been the same thing with Regina. Helen could have given her votes to Regina, and Regina could have won on a third ballot.
Right, or vice versa.
Yeah, and it's not fair to these candidates to not have a vote that determines a true winner. We have to have the vote so we can play out the whole process to the very end, and not just say, it's over, you won. And I'm not saying this because of the person who won, because it's more of a what's the right thing to do than who's the right person to vote for. It's our bylaws, and it's our integrity is at stake here, and if we don't have integrity, we don't have anything.
Right. And so what we found out now is we didn't have election integrity at that meeting. That's what we have found out, because from the reports of the two observers that were there. And now, do I think everybody in the room back there was cheating? No. But somehow, after 3 counts of the ballots, they apparently, in one of the observers, he said the very first count, it was 126. And then subsequently it went to 125. So somehow a ballot came up missing. And I'm not going to speculate on what happened, but somehow that happened. But yet, when they did the ballot audit, all the ballots were there and all of them had a vote. And they put them all in numerical order, because all the ballots are numbered. And the reason that we number all the ballots is because we know exactly how many have been handed out to the voting delegates that are credentialed on the floor when we're having an election. And it's by secret ballot, but they are numbered. And there have been times that I've been in the meeting and they say, okay, stand up, let's have a count off of your number of your ballot, because we've given out too many. And, I've been there, I've seen that, and we've always handled everything. I believe we have handled everything correctly until this meeting. I could talk about another one.
Meeting.
Pardon?
That happened at that meeting. We had to turn our ballots in and pass them back out again, because
yes, we did, because we had 5 delegates.
Yeah.
5 people standing with no ballot, and
right.
They had to get credentialed in. We had to hand all of our ballots back. You're exactly right. I mean, we had an issue at the meeting, although we got it all straightened out and got a correct credentials report. So now we know, okay, now all the ballots were there. Well, that right there, makes this election null and void. in my mind because all the ballots were there. They also went in, as we said, the secretary didn't have possession of the ballots. Somebody else did. And what is so odd on a chair call that we had, the secretary would not even name who had the ballots because we asked. And she said, a trusted friend. Well, I don't know. That to me, it's not chain of custody. You know, right now we're in election, and this is chain of custody of what of ballots. And when you have a challenged election, quite frankly, that is just not acceptable practices. It really isn't. It's not in the best practices for our party and having election integrity. So fast forward a little bit. We've got one challenge was from me. Now there's more information come out, and we've got another challenge. We have totally 4 challenges to the RNC, actually,
Yeah.
challenging that Tracy Honnell is not the duly elected National Committee woman. She's currently still serving her term, but she is not because of what has happened. And so Clint, I'm the chair of Umatilla County Republicans. Clint is the chair of Morrow County Republicans, and Joel Pulowski is the chair of Marion County Republicans. Are the chief petitioners. There was a 4th chief petitioner, was Gabe Bueller from Washington County, but he issued a statement today, and that's fine. He doesn't want to be a chief petitioner anymore, and that's totally fine. I'm not going to beat him up over that. We're responsible for our convictions and what we feel is right and what we feel we can do and take on. But we have petitioned, so now it'll be the 3 of us have petitioned the state party, Oregon Republican Party, to hold a revote with all 3 candidates for the National Committee woman election for that position, and have it July 6th in Salem at 1:00 in the afternoon. And everybody from the state could drive over there in one day, have an election, and drive home. Nobody has to spend the night. You can have lunch on your own, just show up, we have a meeting, and be home. Is it convenient? Not necessarily, but I'll tell you what it does is it follows our bylaws, because in order to have election, you have to have a 30-day notice. And what we're trying to do is follow the bylaws and follow the rules. So go ahead, Clint.
Well, I think that's why we got in this. What we're doing is they wanted to have start with a second vote and have a runoff, and so they sent out their emails and all that. And I'm like, you can't just start. The election was over. You can't just start with say, well, we're going to do over because we found an extra ballot. And so I called you up because I was like, what are we going to do, Suni? How are we going to fix this?
So this is right. This is right. The ORP Executive Committee held an executive committee meeting, a closed meeting. They called it in an hour and a half on a Saturday night. The chairman's out of the country. Another member is over in another state. They called an emergency meeting. And in this emergency meeting is where they disclosed this audit. And they made the decision to vote. I'm not on the executive committee of the ORP, and neither is Clint. And they voted to have a revote. And I have it from somebody who was at that meeting that they voted to have, it was advised by legal counsel of the ORP, or at least Tyler Smith. I'm not sure who legal counsel is any longer. I've heard two names, so I don't know who, but it was reported Tyler Smith had said, you better have a revote. And what came out of that was the State Central Committee received an email from the secretary, who's the person who sends out the notices, that they want us to vote by email to have, yes, we will accept the meeting. It's basically vote no if you just want to accept the meeting as the election as it was, even though we found a ballot. And actually, they didn't tell. Oh, yes, said they found a ballot, but they never let the whole State Central Committee meeting know that there was a challenge to the RNC for the election. They were disingenuous in my opinion, with information and the true reason. And I think the reason they called that whole thing is because of my original challenge to the RNC, of which now there's 4, because more has come to light. And it frustrates us. It pains us that we even have to talk about this, quite frankly. But we have to set the record right. So the other part of that email said, vote yes if you want to have a revote of the 2 top vote-getting candidates. And like Clint says, the election is over. You can't just go in midstream and say, well, we'll just do the top 2 because the third one was out. And we'll do it electronically with Election Buddy. There's no credentials report. And so we were notified the other day that the chairman has made the decision and people voted. I requested at a chair's call for the credentials report of this email vote. And that will never be supplied. That was not, they did not say they would grant it. They just listened to my request and never even acknowledged it in a chair meeting with our chairman. He might have left at that point because he did at a certain point, but also with our vice chair, Plowhead, then ran the meeting. So you don't know who voted which way. And our chairman made the decision that we're just going to let the vote stand. That's it. And Clint called me when the email portion came out about, how we're going to vote. Clint called me and said, Sonny, how are we going to fix this? And I'm so glad.
My problem is I didn't know that you had challenged. And so they sent that email out and they said, well, we're going to start the vote from the middle and have a runoff. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll vote for that. And then I read that you had a challenge. And so I thought about that and I go, well, now wait a minute. I want to do it the right way. And I don't want to vote no, so we don't have a vote. And I don't want to vote yes because I don't like the way they're doing it. So I told Joe Ray to make mine rescind my vote because I didn't want to until the challenge got figured out. And so, it's kind of you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't on that vote.
Yeah, there was no third option. Like, let's just do the whole thing over again in person.
No. And so, when I called you and we talked a little bit, I said, well, what about a petition? Can't we petition? That's the oversight that the members have over the executive team, is to do a petition a meeting and petition a vote at the meeting and have an in-person vote and do it correctly. And right. And so, you and I talked about it and here we are, I guess. I mean, it's taken a lot of work to get to this point.
It has taken a lot of work, but and in my petition and in all the petitions, it is to have a revote in person for the National Committeewoman election. That's what
Yeah.
we are petitioning to the RN. My petition is to the RNC. All of them are to have a revote in person for this election with all three candidates. It's the correct way to do this. And so, so Clint and I talked, and I said, well, you know what? I had had a couple other calls, and so we, called up Gabe Bueller, and he said, yeah, I'll do that, and also Joel Pulowski. And he says, yeah, I'm down with that. And by golly, there was a lot of work when we had a conference call and decided kind of who's going to do what. And because some are still working, we all have things that we have to do, and still try to get this done. And it was a yeoman's lift. I don't know if that's the right term, but it sounded pretty good. It was a big lift, to get done. And now here we have half of the counties. There's 36 counties in Oregon, and we have 18 county signatures. We just need one more county, and that will call a meeting, and the Oregon Republican Party must call it. They can't ignore the petition because it's in our bylaws on this is how you do it, and must call that meeting. And then you know what? It would actually take all the challenges away. We have the election and have it done properly. It would take all those challenges away that are to the RNC.
Well, it
And
would make, if everybody at the executive level and above would just say, let's do this, because if Tracy is so confident she won, then we'll have an election and she probably will win. But why not go through the motions and do the right thing and try to get this election done correctly? And the executive board should be saying, yeah, we got to do this. Otherwise, there's just going to be that little doubt in your mind that it wasn't done correctly. And we don't need that. We have an election, state elections going on, counties, federal elections this fall, and it's a distraction that we don't need.
it is a distraction, and it's been quite eye-opening to me, and I'm sure to you too, that the leadership would not want to do that. Because this is not about who won the election. It is about the process, and it's about election integrity. And that will make our party stronger, having it done correctly. And I will tell you, had I been in the shoes of Tracy, I would have said this, I won't be elected in this fashion. We must have a revote. Let's just do this all, buckle up, and let's just do it all again, and let the chips fall where they might, because it is about the party, and doing things correctly, following the rules, following procedure. And now there's more, now there's more stuff that it's like the executive committee's kind of digging themselves a big hole over here of digging their heels in, saying we're not going to do that. And the chairman, with his letter that he sent out, I'll tell you, I've lost a lot of confidence in our state party in that.
Well, I get tired of them telling us, we just need to quit bickering and we all need to get along, kumbaya. It's like, well, I'm sorry, but we aren't going to get along. We can have good conversations about differing points of view, and in the end, walk away as friends. But the problem is that's not what's happening right now. Is we're being called names, and Tracy's being called names, and it's just, I'm sorry, but if we do the right thing and get it done, we can move on, and we can all argue with each other, but we can do it nicely. And no, we're not all going to have the same point of view, because we're Republicans. The Democrats can toe the party line and be happy, but we're Republicans, we're independent, and we don't toe the party line unless we believe it's right. And my right and your right might be a little bit different, and that's the problem. Is we don't always have the same point of view. So I think we need to have this election and make sure it's done correctly. Have, like you said, have a what do you call it? Somebody from the RNC come and
A parliamentarian to oversee it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and I think that is one of the problems we have. Is I know, it's hard to be a parliamentarian if you don't do it all the time, and I'm afraid that we put a lot of pressure on our parliamentarians, and it seems like we should have 2 or 3 parliamentarians at each meeting so they can, if there is an issue, they can stand up and talk to each other, figure it out, or one can say, no, that's not right. According to my book, we need to do it this way. And if they have a difference of opinion, they can work it out. But at our meetings, they have one parliamentarian. And I don't think at that meeting we got the right scoop on some of the stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, but
I'm in agreement with you, Clint. And, being a parliamentarian and Joanna Harbor, I think she tries her best, but, and she is a lawyer, but just because you're a lawyer doesn't mean you're an expert on everything, and definitely not on parliamentary procedure. And there's a lot to know. And then I've learned that there are certified parliamentarians, there's registered parliamentarians, you can hire parliamentarians. And I think it would be good that our parliamentarian is not the cousin of somebody who's running the election. Is that a problem? I don't know, but it doesn't have a good look.
It might be good to have a non-affiliated parliamentarian come in and do the work for us. I mean, pay them $20 an hour. And have
Does anybody make $20 an hour anymore, Clint?
I don't know. I don't make $20 an hour.
You can go to McDonald's, I think, and get 25 an hour. I don't know, but I get your point.
So yeah, my point is to have an independent parliamentarian who isn't, I mean, anyway, you get the point.
Isn't conflicted.
Yeah.
And would just be neutral in that. We've I've been around long enough to have seen the good side of our party, and a great parliamentarian that unfortunately, his health got affected, and he and his wife sadly moved to Idaho, and yeah. So, it's how do we have to be. You bring up a very good point. It seems to be some in our party think that we all have to have groupthink, and we don't have to have groupthink. No. As long as our goal is the betterment of our party, it's okay if we agree to disagree. Clint, you and I haven't always agreed on things, but by golly, we're still friends, and we're not afraid to pick up the phone and have a conversation with one another. And I think we need that civility, and it's not mob rule either. So I wondered about, so I was talking with Clint a little before we started that if had that type of election gone on at the county level, that would not have been tolerated. Even my PCPs, our PCPs that we have in our county would have gone, oh no, we're not doing that. Do you think that would have been flown in your county?
Well, what would have happened if it would have been on the National Committee man's side? If Solomon, the way it turned out, if they would have just said, well, you're the winner, somebody else is the winner. Do you think that all the executive committee people would have said, "Oh, okay, you're the winner." I don't think so. I think if the tables were turned, they would have had as many revotes as they needed, and I just think
I think you're right.
I think it's you know it's slighted our opinion on the process, I guess, and what's good for the gander is not always good for the goose, and vice versa. It should have been done the exact same way as the national committee man, and just because one vote short, you still didn't get 64 votes. I'm sorry, you didn't win, and you know they should have went ahead and done the whole thing, but here we are.
But remember, in the National Committeeman's election, they had all 126 ballots. That
Right.
was the odd part. I mean, our next election, all the ballots miraculously showed up. And
Yeah.
yet they fought people asking, go count them again, go put them in numerical order to see, because some people got up, my number 77. In fact, I know who that person was that said, my number 77, I want to know that my vote counted. And if someone else got up and said, mine's 24, I want to know my vote counted. Put them
Yeah.
in numerical order. And it's astonishing that they would not do that. Take the
There was
time. We had nothing to lose, and this is what we were there for.
there was a comment in one of the, I don't know if it was an email or somebody's in a thread somewhere that said nobody asked for a revote, and I'm like, yeah, we did ask for a revote, and
Yes, we did. And it's unfortunate that some people are saying that that was never asked. And truthfully, I've read through the minutes, the draft minutes that have been sent out, Clint, and I don't find them to be true and correct at all especially regarding the National Committeewoman election. And I have requested twice, at least twice, from our secretary a copy of the recording of the meeting, and have been denied. She said, no, it's on my personal computer. And after the minutes are approved by the body, I destroy the recording. Well, the recording is the property of the Oregon Republican Party. I don't care if it's on your personal computer. That's a record. And so I also asked the chairman, and he never responded to my email. Instead, he had the parliamentarian, Joanna Harbor, respond to my email. The chairman will not even respond. And I asked that for a copy of the recording. And because how does a body check something that is incorrect? How do you? Unless you record it yourself. Do we have to now record our own meetings? Because it used to be when we had Becky Mitz, and even before Becky Mitz, if a county chair or a district chair, we now have 6 districts as well, if they requested a recording of the minutes to make sure that the other minutes were correct, it was granted and it was sent to them. Because you know
yeah.
what? We were all on the same team fighting for the same thing. We want our records to be true and correct. And right now, the Oregon Republican Party secretary will not do that. The chairman will not. He won't even respond to an email. It's just like, what the hell? And I see a statement here. What are they hiding? That is my question. Because
Well,
why wouldn't you? They don't have anything
I
to
think
lose by sending that recording out.
well, and just because it's on her personal computer doesn't mean that it's her property. It's the property of the ORP that she happened to use her personal computer for. If that's going to
Yeah.
be an issue, then we need to have ORP computers at the meetings to record. And if it wasn't a
Seriously,
controversial recording, she would have given it to somebody. I mean, I love Joe Ray dearly, but that I think it's the wrong thing. I think it needs to be released so people can hear what really happened.
Yes, and so that we can make sure that the minutes are true and correct and
Yeah,
not just, well, this is the outcome that we want those minutes to be. And
yeah,
I like Joe Ray, but that's wrong, this decision. And this is her decision. She is not under the chair. She is elected in her own right to represent the state Republican Party.
yeah,
And so it's sad that this is where we're at. It's totally sad that this is where we're at as a state party. And frustrating is is a word. So why do you think, I wanted to ask you a question of, there are some counties that don't want to sign our petition. Why do you think that is? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Clint.
well, no, you're not. It's just, I don't know. I mean, I don't, I guess I can't speak for them. I guess I shouldn't speak for them. You know, it's the, like I said, we're not all robots and we don't all think the same way. And so they have their opinion of how the election went, and we have our opinion how the election went. And if they feel like they like the way it happened, then they probably don't want to vote for it. And but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. For me, I want election integrity. And I think you want election integrity and following our bylaws and having things to be true and correct. And so we just need one more county. I would like to have two more counties,
Yeah,
and sign on to the petition. And let's just have the date be darned. Let's just have a meeting and have a vote and be done with it, because that's
yeah,
what we need to do to move forward as a party, correctly, in a correct manner, and to know without a doubt, no shadow of a doubt, of who our national committee woman is going into next year, into representing us beyond, for the next 4 years. It's a 4-year position. And
yeah.
I personally, I would never want to be elected with a shadow going, oh, this is not, there's a question. Did I really get elected? I can't live like that. But apparently Tracy can, because she has not called for an election.
Well, it's going to have a black mark on Oregon for the next 4 years, because there's always going to be somebody that says, yeah, but, and, and so, to me, I'm like you, I would, even if I lost, I would rather have a fair election and know the actual result. And like I said
Yeah,
before, if she's so adamant that she win, then let's get her done.
right. Exactly. So also, if we were to have this meeting, we've got the petition and we have time still to get this accomplished. All the challenges at the RNC goes away. But if we don't get the petition meeting, the challenges are still there. And quite frankly, with the mounting evidence that is coming out, we've got bigger problems than election integrity. And I believe that we could very well, the RNC could say, you need to have an election. We're not going to seat the national committee woman. So that would force us to have an election. If we have it now in July, which is why we're asking for it in July, it is before the national convention. All of that would be behind us before the national convention. We're trying to look at the big picture. We got to play the big picture game, not look at a little tiny county issue or a small issue here, because that is who our representative at the national convention and beyond. And so to where if the RNC makes this decision, it might not, I don't know when they would make the determination. Apparently next week, this committee that looks at these types of things is going to be looking at this. And, but it actually, from my experience with the RNC, I've been to many meetings and I have been on a committee that would be looking at challenges. It goes before the body for a vote. So that means we would not, let's say they said, nope, you've got to have a meeting, but the body's got to vote. The RNC body has to vote. It's the committee would make a determination to give it to the body to vote. So that delays it even further, which will not help the Oregon Republican Party at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, both of them are still valid through the election, but then once the election's over, then if there's a question, then are they gonna, like you said, it may be Christmas before we have a decision and a vote to.
Yeah.
I think, the best thing is just do it now.
It is. It actually is the simplest way to clear things up, and we go, okay, that's whoever wins, that's who our national committee woman is, and we're off and running, and we get this behind us. That's the best thing for our state party, is do it correctly in person and get it behind us. Is there anything else you'd like to add on this discussion before we change topics?
Oh, I didn't know we were going to change topics on me.
No, I wanted to, remember I talked about the postal thing. I wanted to bring up about
right, yeah. I don't know. I think whoever's listening, appreciate everybody who's listening, is if your county is on the edge on this, it'd be nice to bump it over so we could have at least one or two or three or four or five more counties that would back us up and help do the right thing on this. And I understand if your county doesn't want to do it, that's your prerogative. But it would be nice to get enough counties and have a meeting and have a vote and do it the right way.
I think so too. In fact, I think we could actually only get out of 36 counties, we could only get 34 because there's 2 counties that are not what's called organized. So actually it should lower the threshold. It's kind of like ballots cast, right? Ballots cast. Those are the only available ballots is 34. So we should have already met the threshold. But the rule says that it is a majority of the counties. It doesn't say counties. It's 50% plus one of the counties organized. So we would never get more than 34. And I think all the counties ought to jump in. And that just sends the message to leadership. You know what? We're on board with this. Let's have an in-person meeting and get it done with. We get it done with in a day and we move on. And we've got more things to do in our state. And it would be the best thing, in my opinion. So I wanted to, the postal right now, ballots, people, don't mail your ballots. Stick them in a drop box. Put them all in the drop box. And there had been an article came out about the Postal Services is holding ballots. Well, I went to our county here in Umatilla County. I went to our county elections office today and asked the county, almost a county clerk. The county clerk wasn't there, but I asked actually a new fellow who works in our county, Scott, that I hope I said the right name. I keep getting him confused, either Scott or Steve, but I think it's Scott, about this. And he has experience. And he said, well, actually here in Umatilla County, the post offices, some of the post offices have been taking the ballots put at the post office and counseling them, like putting a stamp, what day they've been, received, putting a stamp on them, but they were dropping them instead of going through the postal service into the mailbox or delivering it via mail to the elections. They put them in drop boxes. So, like,
Can they
since
do it?
when does the post office put the ballots in the drop box?
I don't know if that's
That's
legal.
Well, I don't know about that either, but that's what happened in a few of our communities, smaller communities, and I don't know which post office was doing that. So there was a meeting, and with the state's postmaster, chief postmaster, whatever that title is, and said, we're not going to do that any longer. The ballots that are in the mail are going to go through the mail system.
Yeah.
And, but I'll tell you, everybody, don't mail your ballot. I would never put a ballot in the mail unless I would give it to somebody I trust to drop it in a drop box for me. If I couldn't get to the drop box, I really would. The mail would be the last place I would put my ballot.
Well,
So let's get them in.
we live out in the country, and so we either have to drive to Ione to drop them or Hepner. And so, what was it what is this? This is Friday, I think Wednesday. And we only get mail Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we put our ballots in the mail, and then that story came out, and I'm going, oh geez, just our luck. And so today I looked up on our county to see if my ballot had been received, and it had been. So I think we've dodged a bullet on that one, but it sounds like a lot of people haven't. They're holding them to see how many to determine the postage rate they have to charge either the county or whoever it is. Well, how many mail-in ballot elections have we had since 1990, whatever, when they started it? They already know all this crap. I'm sorry, but you can't hold ballots and say, well, we have to do it because we don't know how much to charge. Did you change the rules?
Are you kidding? And this is not the first election that it was a prepaid envelope. This is not the
No,
first election
right.
that it's now been prepaid. And I
No,
preferred it when you had to put a stamp on it because they canceled the stamp.
right. Yeah. What has it
Yeah.
been? 3 or 4 years since they did the prepaid postage?
I don't think it's been 4 years. I'm going to guess 2 years, but it could be. It could be. Time's
Was it
flying by,
COVID?
Clint, like faster and faster.
Was it because of COVID they did it?
No, no. I remember
No.
it was before COVID that they had gone to postage paid, saying that
Oh,
it was going to increase. Why should we put the burden that somebody has to buy a stamp,
to
at
vote.
what, we're going to get
It's
more people voting if we put a postage paid. Well, no, I don't know that it's increased voting, but it certainly has. They've made other changes, and they don't even, there's no date on the darn envelope. You don't even know when it's come.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's
It's a mess.
it's frustrating. That word came back
It is.
again.
Yeah, that word came back again. Frustrating. All right.
Um,
Hey, Clint, thank you for coming on and talking about this issue. We have things going on in our party, and we have some people, like you mentioned earlier, that are calling others names, and that those are Democrat tactics. It is. I heard somebody's calling me a terrorist because of the petition. Oh yeah, I'm a terrorist. I'm not a terrorist. Never been, not going to be. But I do want free and fair elections in in our counties, our cities, county, state, and nation. So thank you, Clint, for joining me tonight. It's a real pleasure to have you on Captive Audience, and maybe we can get you back again sometime.
We'll see. Thanks a lot, Sunny. I appreciate it.
Okay. And everybody, have a great weekend. Talk to your family, friends, and neighbors. Get them to vote. Contact your county Republican Party if you have some questions, about candidates and you don't know. Help your family, friends, and neighbors about it. And let's get our ballots in. Get them in the drop box this weekend. And Tuesday's election day, and so the clock is ticking. And yes, pray for David. I'll since you mentioned that, Lori, I'll tell you, I actually called and I talked to Karen and David today and told him that we're all praying for him, and they're all in our prayers, and keep up the fight. And we want him pulling out of this. So it was wonderful actually to hear his voice today. He sounded good, and Karen did as well. They're in a big battle and they need our support. So if you can, go to their GoFundMe and look up the Darnells and go to their GoFundMe and donate to them. Everybody, have a super weekend. God bless all of you, and share the message, okay? Share the link. Good night.